Star people, it's Christopher the AstroMedium and your host, intuitive astrologer for the cosmic forecast and energy update for the week of August 8th through August 14th. We're going to take a look at these energies day by day, and then later in the video I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on some of these larger energy signatures that are at play. This is a very critical week coming up. It is a week that is hot on the radar for all you ascension symptoms watchers. People who are following me, you definitely watch the ascension symptoms closely. We talk about light codes, upgrades, DNA, all of that stuff is being activated this week, and we will talk about why. Also, there are some pretty big astrological shifts coming our way and major alignments that are happening. Very exciting, but I also want you to understand that some of these energies are going to be a little intense as we are still building in this year of Aquarius. The Aquarius energies are so strong. This is the year of Aquarius. Uranus is one of the stars. Uranus is going to be one of the stars of this new moon that's coming up. Uranus has been very active, and of course it's Leo season, so things are bigger, things are more dramatic right now. But Leo is the opposite sign of Aquarius, so there's a lot of tension building up in the collective at this time. So let's start with Sunday, August 8th. This, of course, is 8/8, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Lionsgate portal. Everyone's talking about it. The Lionsgate portal, of course, always happens on 8/8, and we call it the Lionsgate portal because, of course, although I like to say that it has a lot to do with like Syrian beings and that sort of thing because they are feline in nature, some of them, and this does have to do with the Syrian star system. But 8/8 is always the alignment of the Earth and the Grand Central Sun and Orion and Ceres, and this is a major cosmic alignment that causes downloads and upgrades and incoming light codes to come in and upgrade our DNA. And this Lionsgate portal coincides with the new moon in Leo. So they're both happening on the same day, and this is very meaningful. So many cosmic synchronicities happening this year. Now the new moon in Leo is not as active as the preceding full moon in Aquarius, and of course the following full moon Aquarius, because we get two full moons in Aquarius this year. But the new moon in Leo is a little bit softer, a little bit calmer, but I also prescribe to Barbara Handclaugh's beliefs that if you don't know who Barbara Handclaugh is, you absolutely need to check that out right now. But Barbara Handclaugh has a beautiful explanation on what happens at the time of the new moon, and in some ways the new moon is more powerful, more meaningful than the full moon in certain ways, especially cosmically. There's so much alignment and incoming energies that happen at that time. And of course the new moon is the completion of one cycle, the beginning of another one. Now the Lionsgate portal happens the entire day, but the new moon in Leo will happen at 9:50 a.m. and the moon and the sun will be exactly conjunct in the sign of Leo at 16 degrees 14 minutes. So we're about halfway through Leo season by the time we get to this new moon. So interesting time to start anew or to plant new seeds. And this cosmic synchronicity is meaningful to me, and I feel like it's going to be even more intense. Now the astrological energies surrounding the new moon in Leo that happen on Sunday are not as intense or as wild as other lunations that we've had this year, especially recently, and it's definitely not as impactful or big like the second full moon in Aquarius, or I like to call full moon in Aquarius part 2, which will happen on August 22nd, but it's the same day as the Lionsgate portal, so I do feel we will have a lot of ascension symptoms coming in. I'm feeling a lot of head stuff. We're already starting to feel more dizzy. Digestion is becoming an issue. Not feeling grounded. Heat in the body. There's a lot of different symptoms happening right now. Sleep is going to be a big one, so make sure that you take care of your body. Lots of nutrients. Ground your energy. And refocus, recalibrate, and really tune into the heart. And Leo rules the heart. So this is a perfect time to get out of the mind, into the heart, and also into your body, where you can be in the present moment and allow these DNA upgrades and these light codes to come in. Now, on the same day as the new moon in Leo, Lilith will form a conjunction to Ceres. So for those of you who are not familiar with Lilith and Ceres energy, Lilith is of course the domain of the moon. She is Black Moon Lilith, and she represents a lot of shadow aspects to our consciousness. I like to say that she's a love child between Uranus, Mars, and Pluto. She's rebellious, she's independent, she's savage, she's angry, but she suppresses her anger. And she represents a lot of sexual suppression, abuse, rage, things that we are not expressing and we are suppressing in our subconscious. Well, Ceres is a very different energy, and Ceres also relates to the moon slightly because Ceres is, in my opinion, ruled by Cancer, and Ceres is the mother. Ceres is parenting, adoption, loss, grief, acceptance. There's so much energy coming in right now around acceptance and accepting certain savage parts of ourselves. So around this new moon and this Lionsgate portal, we will feel this culmination point, this feeling that there are energies in us that want to be expressed. There are energies that represent an uncompromising part of us that want to be expressed. The bitch in us wants to come out, but also this is saying we want to nurture that. We want to take care of those more tender parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that are more savage, animalistic, that we are afraid to express. It's okay to find a safe environment during that new moon and allow those energies to come out. So mostly full moons will cause a lot of emotional tension and a lot of electromagnetic static energy to build up around the body and in the emotional body. But this new moon is heavily charged by this Lionsgate portal and of course Lilith forming a conjunction to Ceres, and that's happening exactly on August 8th. Now, another energy to watch out for that day is the moon is going to form a square to Uranus. This, of course, is going to shake some shit up. This is going to make things a little chaotic. It's going to make us want to break free of something. And of course, Uranus rules Aquarius, and Aquarius is the opposite sign of Leo. So there's this interesting conversation that this new moon is having. Although there is a lot of healing wrapped around this moon, because the moon will be forming a beautiful 120-degree angle trine to Chiron during that time. And of course, there's healing that's coming in. There's healing that's coming in from these light codes, from these upgrades, from this purging that may happen. But I also want you all to be mindful that it may cause some restlessness, some anxiety. This new moon may not feel like a normal, calm, go with the flow, resting new moon. There might be a lot of energy being charged, a lot of electrical energy coming through the body. And we also want to be mindful about wanting to escape from these feelings. The moon will be forming a confusing quincunx to Neptune that day. Quincunxes are 150-degree angles. They are tense, like squares and oppositions, but confusing. There's no way out. Every time you try to fix something, you have to keep adjusting. It's all about fine-tuning. And with the moon making a quincunx to Neptune, there is a tendency, of course, not to really understand why we're feeling things the way we are. We're not really getting why we're as hypersensitive as we may be. Or there might be a lot of psychic information, intuitive information coming into the system. We don't know how to make sense of it, and we're not trusting that as well. This intensity may cause some escapism to happen, so you want to be mindful of that. Now let's move to Monday, August 9th. The moon is going to enter Virgo at 10:56 a.m. So for most of the morning, the moon will still be in Leo, but as soon as it enters into Virgo, we're going to get quite a shift in that energy. We're going to come out of that new moon energy slightly, and it's going to take us down more into our body, but also into our mind. Things may become hyperactive at that time. There's a lot of different conversations that the moon is having that day. Now, the main energy signatures is there's a very interesting energy that's happening that day, and it's Saturn forming a trine 120-degree angle to Vesta. So if you're not as familiar with Vesta energy, Vesta is the asteroid goddess that's responsible for sacred healing, what we keep holy and sacred, what we devote ourselves to, causes that we're devoting ourselves to. There's a lot of passion with Vesta energy. So with Saturn in a trine with Vesta, we're already feeling this energy now, but it will go exact on Monday. There is something that we are investing ourselves into, that we are thinking about in the long term. We are pulling our resources together at this time, and we are able to push our energy forward in a stronger way. There's more discipline that comes in. We're taking responsibility for the things that we hold sacred. And we also there's a lot of karmic energy that's coming about from that as well. Now, Venus, this is where it's going to get interesting on Monday, because this escapism energy in the new moon is not going to go away, because Venus is forming an exact opposition to Neptune. So when Venus in Virgo forms that exact opposition to Neptune in Pisces, this is going to open the heart. It definitely intensifies our compassion and our desire to indulge, but there is tension there. And with Venus opposite Neptune, you need to be mindful of being taken advantage of. Your heart is open, but maybe too open. Neptune is there clouding your judgment. You're not discerning people's motives properly or from a place of reality. You are also more likely to escape through indulging sex, drugs, food, whatever brings you pleasure. So as Venus rules pleasure, Neptune comes in, opposes that energy. So there is a tendency to want to relax, but maybe relax too much. Maybe we're wanting to relax so much that we're wanting to leave the body. We need to be mindful in the first beginning days of this week. We need to stay grounded as much as possible. Now, Mercury's going to come into the conversation and cause some confusion. Now, one of the most obvious energies that we're going to feel is Mercury's quincunx to Pluto, and this will happen on Monday. Lots of energy happening on Monday. Mercury's quincunx to Pluto is going to have you looking deeply into things, but a little too deeply, and not even understanding or withdrawing the information properly. So again, more confusion. And on the other side of that, Mercury is also going to form an exact quincunx to Pallas. Well, that just sucks because Mercury and Pallas work really well together. And if you're not as familiar with Pallas energy, Pallas is the asteroid goddess of mental healing. She's a mental asteroid. She's got the healing energy like Chiron, but she's more about how you change the neural pathways. She's also about strategy, how you move through conflict with grace and ease. She's a divine feminine energy. Pallas is also Athena. She is the goddess of war, where Mars is the god of war. So she takes a higher approach, a wiser approach. She wants to move through conflict and negotiate, maybe move around it, or be a little tricky as well. Pallas energy can cause some manipulation to happen, but Pallas is also about pattern recognition. So we're not really going to understand why we're having these little confrontations with people and these really intense conversations, because Pluto's going to be in this conversation at the same time. With Mercury forming a quincunx to both Pluto and Pallas, my God, there is really some mind games that we can be playing with each other, and definitely wanting to have power over each other and not actually thinking about the other person or someone thinking about us and our best interests. We're just trying to get what we want, and we're not moving through it with grace and ease, where there's a little bit of a force, there's a little bit of control. And that is definitely coming from Pluto, but the manipulation is intensified by Pallas. So be mindful with your conversations. So just be mindful as you're moving about your day that things can get a little heated, because the moon is also going to form a conjunction to Mars that day. That's going to make us a little hot-headed. Our mood is going to be a little aggressive. That's definitely, when moon conjuncts Mars, definitely a time to be passionate, put your energy into something. But with all of these possibilities for misunderstandings and miscommunication, we may start to get very aggressive and make rash decisions about how we can handle these issues that are coming at us. If that wasn't enough, the moon is also going to form a quincunx to Pluto and Pallas. So whenever the moon has a conversation with these planets at the same time that they're having conversations with each other, it's very interesting because it activates that. The moon is an activator. So the moon is not only just, she's not forming an opposition or a square, she's forming the same angle to Pluto and Pallas as Mercury is. And the moon is also going to conjunct Mercury, so we're really going to be in our mind. So just remember, this is a huge cloud of energy where there's a lot of confusion. What I would say is definitely take a break. If you start to notice that people are not responding to you as well, or that we're misunderstanding, or you feel that people are trying to misunderstand you on purpose, take a step back, take a breather, go meditate, go off by yourself. Definitely go out into nature again if you can. Ground the energy, because there's so much coming in at you that the human world down here in the physical realm is really going to be a little chaotic, lots of confusion. And we've also got these higher dimensional energies still coming in from this new moon in Leo and from this intense 8/8 Lionsgate portal. So we're going to be hit from so many angles that may cause exhaustion and may cause you to use up too much of your energy. Now let's move to Tuesday, August 10th. This is going to be another challenging and interesting day. The energies are going to start to let up a little bit from that new moon in Leo, but we're still going to get some challenges within our communication, within the mind. We're going to try to force things. There's going to be a tendency to want to push when we don't feel that things are in alignment. We need to be careful with this. There's a very interesting conversation happening between Jupiter and Mercury. Now, I always love when Mercury and Jupiter come together because they really enliven it. It makes the mind bigger. It gives our perception a larger scope and focus. Now, they're forming an opposition to each other, which can be challenging. What this can mean is we're definitely being cocky, where our communication, our words can come off more arrogant. Like we know what we're talking about. We don't need to learn anything, because Jupiter in oppositions and squares, he can give off a guru energy. I'm here to enlighten you. I'm here to teach you. I already know everything. Now, Mercury is the lower mind and the processing mind, Gemini, and Jupiter is the higher mind, Sagittarius, the higher perspective. Now, in this opposition, we have a tug of war happening between the way that we absorb information from a data perspective, from a analyzing and detail-oriented perspective, all the way to the way that we absorb information and give meaning to things from a wiser, more higher perspective, which is that Jupiter energy. So be mindful of your words, because we may be over presumptuous and communicating in such a confident way and not really knowing what we're talking about, because Mercury's in Leo, Jupiter's in Aquarius. So Jupiter definitely has the upper hand, and Mercury's definitely very brash and bold and doesn't necessarily care if it has the facts. So be mindful of that. Now, another energy to watch out for on Tuesday is Mars forming an exact square, a 90-degree angle to the North Node. Well, this is a very interesting energy, because the North Node, of course, as you know, is not just the unfoldment of our psychological evolution, which a lot of not-so-spiritual astrologers tend to prescribe to that belief, but more it is our soul's path, it's our destiny. And when the North Node is in a conversation with a planet that isn't in your natal chart, and it is an actual transit that's happening currently, this is affecting the entire collective soul progression, if you will. So Mars is all about how you get what you want. It's very masculine energy. It's aggressive. It can be violent. It can be forceful. Well, a square is going to bring that energy out even more. All that toxic masculine energy is coming out. And there is a tendency to not feel an alignment. Things are not going as well as they should be. And when we notice that we don't feel that we're in that flow of energy and receiving that call and moving towards our path and our destiny, we may try to force things or push it into place. There's a tendency with Mars energy to also express a lot of ego complexes. The sun definitely represents the ego, but Mars can definitely show us how we express that ego physically out into the world. Well, this is going to tell the universe and tell your soul, your higher self, I don't trust you. I don't feel that you have my back. And a lot of us feel like that right now, because a lot of us are going through a lot of depression right now. There are things coming up for us, things from the past, things that our ancestors have passed down to us, things that we don't even have anything to do with in this lifetime, other lifetimes, things that are in our DNA that are trying to express themselves. We are feeling so heavy in a lot of ways, and we just feel like, why me? Why did I choose this? Why are you all doing this to me? Stop it. This can exacerbate that energy and cause you to want to force the point and to move toward energies in your life that may not be representative of the direction that your soul is moving in. Because the ego is not always bad, it's not always in disagreement, but the ego is a lot of times not in alignment with the soul's energy, because the soul has that higher perspective, and the ego wants to be the same and wants you to stay the same and wants to focus on what's happening now. Now let's move to Wednesday, August 11th. This is another interesting day. This week is just bam, bam, bam. It doesn't let up. Now the moon is going to enter Libra at 4:08 p.m. So for most of the day, the moon will still be in Virgo, and this is a very earthy day. It's a grounded day, because Mercury is going to leave Leo and enter Virgo. So Mercury is so excited at this point, because Mercury hasn't been this comfortable since he was in Gemini. And as Mercury enters Virgo on this day, Venus is also going to form a trine to Pluto. Now the moon is also going to form a trine to Pluto and make a conjunction to Venus. So another day where the moon is activating this larger energy signature. So as the mind, our communication style, as that takes that shift from that really bold, dramatic, outspoken, loud Leo into that very introspective, analyzing, data-oriented and detail-oriented Virgo, we are going to feel our heart space fill up a little bit more, but this is a really great energy. Venus will still be in a slight opposition with Neptune at that time, but as she forms that trine, which is 120 degrees to Pluto, she's going to receive so much empowerment and support. This is going to our heart is going to move into more intimate places. We're going to be craving more deep connections with people. We're going to be taking pleasure in deeper conversations, and our desire for intimacy grows and becomes more powerful. There's a rose-colored glasses complex, but we don't mind that. There's nothing wrong with seeing the beauty in things, especially if you can see the real, raw truth in something and still find the beauty in it. When you can see the shadows that lie behind someone and in someone and still see the beauty in that, that's where Venus and Pluto will come together. Also, just another side note for Wednesday is the moon is going to form in opposition to Neptune. This is going to keep that vibration of escapism going. Be careful with this. There's a lot of Venus energy this week, which can definitely open the heart, definitely make us want to take pleasure in things. Pluto's going to take that to even more extreme and intense places, although it's very beautiful, it's supportive, it's a trine. But as the moon forms that opposition to Neptune, watch your dreams on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning when you wake up. Make sure you write down your dreams, because there's a lot of healing information, but there's a lot of indicators about what needs to be healed and what's coming. Lots of psychic information can happen at that time. When the moon opposes Neptune, we may be hypersensitive and not feeling from a place of reality, and things may be a little too intense. You may want to get out of your body a little bit. We can do that with sex. Venus trine Pluto is definitely going to make you want to have some hot, steamy sex. Not quite when Venus and Mars come together. It's a little bit more raw, it's more real, it's more intimate. It's not just about wham, bam, thank you, man. It's about taking it to a more spiritual level, more real, blending those energies together and going to deep places with each other, no pun intended. Now let's move to Thursday, August 12th. The moon will still be in Libra the entire day, so Venus energies are very strong. Venus rules Libra, so there's a romantic air about these days as we move closer to the end of the week. Now, Venus is going to form an opposition to Pallas. As we know, Pallas and Neptune have been hanging out in Pisces together for a while this year, and they are coming back due to their retrogrades into an actual conjunction this month. And so Venus is going to form this opposition to Pallas. This may cause some tension in relationships. It may cause some misunderstandings and some lashing out at each other, but not in aggressive ways, not in always noticeable or obvious ways. There may be manipulation that happens. So again, as Mercury forms that quincunx to Pallas earlier in the week, and then Venus forms an opposition to Pallas, we need to be mindful that we are not manipulating others with our words, and also getting our loved ones and our partnerships to do what we want it to do. Now, Pluto can give a very manipulative energy, definitely, because it rules Scorpio and it has this power about it, this magnetism. But Pallas energy, this is definitely able to use patterns and use techniques to your advantage. Be mindful of that and make sure that if this is happening to you, that you all have conversations about this, because anytime Pallas is in the conversation, just like Chiron, there can be some healing that comes out from that. So when these planets form these hard angles to each other and confusing angles, this isn't to punish us. It isn't to make our lives harder. There is a gift. There is some type of tension. Tension is what's keeping the entire vibrational universe in motion. So this tension that causes an eruption of something new to happen. And with an opposition, there's some kind of choice. Are you going to choose connection and pleasure? Or are you going to choose to think too deeply about things, or to manipulate or try to move through it without working together? Now, if relationships were not already being tested at this time, Mars is going to come in and form an exact square 90-degree angle to Juno. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with Juno energy, she is the asteroid goddess of marriage, long-term partnerships, commitments, agreements, anything that is a partnership or something that you're entering into that has a contract or an agreement. Juno. And we really, really look at Juno for marriage as well. So again, partnerships. Juno is kind of like the love child between Saturn and Venus. So she's all about relationships, but from a very logical, obligated duty standpoint, a responsibility, sticking it out in the long term. Mars and Juno may cause some tension for you in your long-term partnerships. We may be a little bit more aggressive. We may get into some conflicts with each other. Both of us are having, or many of us, because some of you are in thruples and open relationships, this can affect all of you, not just a one-on-one partnership. But there is tension that is building. There is restlessness, but there's also not understanding, not feeling each other from a deep place if we're not careful. We want to pull in that Venus energy. We want to pull in that Venus and Pluto energy, have some sex, have some really deep conversations, intimacy, touch each other, because a lot of the issues that are going to come up are around what we're committing ourselves to and how much attention we're getting from the other person, how much focus the other person is giving us or how much we're giving them, and how much of that energy is being taken from us and being given to us. There's a lot of energy exchange information that's coming in at this time, and themes that are going to bring certain unresolved issues that you're having within these long-term agreements, because it's not just marriage. It could be a roommate situation or a business partner. Things may boil to the surface at that time. What I would say with the square is let it out. You can tune, but make sure that you go deep with these people. Make sure you know that if you really care about these people and there is intimacy and there is trust, that you maintain that as a firm foundation. And if you all have some choice words and an exchange that is heated, allow that to heal the situation instead of moving you into a more fractured place. Now let's move to Friday, August 13th. This is, of course, another special day this week. It's like bam, bam, bam. It really just will not stop. It's Friday the 13th. 13 is my lucky number, and Friday the 13th is the luckiest day for me. So I'm very excited about this, but of course this is meaningful. There is some kind of numerological synchronicity with this. This is a date that we often look out for and something that we in the collective know a lot about and think a lot about. Friday the 13th is something that's very heavy in our collective, and there is a lot of history to that is still within all of the lineage that we come from. And this is a day where there's going to be some power plays. There's definitely going to be some issues with authority figures and people who are trying to tell us what to do. Mars is going to form a very confusing quincunx to Saturn. Anytime Mars and Saturn come together, for me, it's kind of like throwing dirt on a fire, but it's not working. So there is something that we are wanting, something that we're moving towards, but it doesn't really have a long-term. It doesn't have longevity. It doesn't have a long-term trajectory. There are things that we are trying to make happen that will fizzle out very quickly. And there are a lot of people who may try to stop you, get in your way. Saturn is one of the stars this year. Saturn, of course, is one of the traditional rulers of Aquarius. So he and Uranus together forming this square that they are still forming together right now is causing a lot of tension overall on the entire globe and in the collective. This is just going to amp that up a little bit. People may try to come in the way, things, responsibilities, authority figures, definitely saying, don't do that, try to slow you down. You will try to push past it more, but instead of gaining their respect, you're going to lose the respect of these people, and you're also going to notice that, again, with this Mars energy, you have expelled so much energy trying to make something happen, and it's not going anywhere, it's not leading anywhere. Also be mindful on Friday that the moon is going to square Pluto. Now, whenever the moon makes a square to Pluto, things get really intense. Things can get kind of dark. We can take our emotional reactions can go to extreme places. We can take things to the extreme as well. So just be cautious if you're in an exchange with somebody or noticing that you are pushing too much energy outward and it really doesn't have anywhere to go. Pull your energy back. Notice your emotions. It doesn't mean you can't express yourself. With Moon square Pluto, there's definitely a tendency to erupt on the inside, not really show it. We may have some altercations that day or some situations, maybe even in traffic, which cause something to build up in you that really feels like it's draining your energy. But you need to express these emotions because you're just going to suppress them, push them down into the body, and then they're going to get stored somewhere, and you're going to have to do some healing work on it later. This is one of those days that you want to be mindful of. Now, Mercury is also going to be in some intense conversations. Mercury is going to square Lilith. Woo! That's going to take this day to even more extreme places. And Mercury's also going to square Ceres. So what this tells me is that we may have some conversations with people that day that are not very nice. We are not caring about what the other person is feeling. We aren't empathizing with them, and our words can be quite harsh. With Ceres energy, there's a lot of nurturing that comes with that. Mother energy. Ceres is the asteroid goddess that's very closely related to the moon. There is not an emotional component with Ceres. There's a parent, and it is the mother. Mother Nature as well. She's grounded. But with this square to Mercury, we may be seeing things and not be caring about taking care of the other person or how they're going to feel based on what we're saying. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it is intensified by the fact that Lilith is also in a square with Mercury, so we may be saying things for the shock of it. We may be trying to get someone's attention, and we may finally be saying, I have been holding back my words for so long. I have blockages in the throat chakra. I'm always staying quiet. I will not be hushed anymore, so I'm going to overdo it and go out of my way to say things that let people know that I'm not that girl you thought I was. I'm not that little meek, mild princess that everyone keeps making me out to be. I have something to say, and I want to say the truth. I want to say things that I've been holding back for so long. This is a perfect storm. So Friday, although there's a lot of intense energies this week coming up, Friday might be the most intense when it comes to conversations and dealing with other people. Tensions may rise, emotions may go to extreme places. We need to be taking a deep breath. Some of you may even need to lock yourself in the house. No, I'm just kidding. But really just be mindful of all of this so that you don't find yourself in situations that are damaging that you can't find your way back out of. Now we are going to finish the week with August 14th, Saturday. This is a calmer day. It's probably the calmest day of the entire week, and it's still heavily active. So not only do we have the moon making some very important activating conversations, we also have an interesting, confusing conversation between, there's lots of quincunxes happening this week, a confusing conversation between Venus and Jupiter. Now I always love when Mercury and Jupiter come together, and they're in a hard conversation this week, the lower mind and the higher mind. But I always love when Venus and Jupiter come together. There's not really anything wrong that can happen when Venus and Jupiter come together. They are forming a quincunx to each other, however, so there's some confusion. When Venus and Jupiter are in very good conversations, a conjunction, a trine, sextile, I mean, even the squares and the oppositions give a lot of boost to that energy, although they can cause a lot of overindulgence, overspending. This one is a little bit like, we don't really know how to take enjoyment in things. We may try to spend money on things to make ourselves feel better. We may try, and it doesn't end up giving us that optimism or that boost in mood. There's also a tendency to, we may go out, we may try to socialize more, but it didn't quite pan out the way that we thought it was going to. Now, what's interesting this day as well is our mood is going to be very heightened. And of course, if you follow my work, you'll know that I talk a lot about the Saturn-Uranus square, which is the largest energy signature of 2021. Saturn and Uranus making a square to each other. This is memorable. We're going to remember this year. It's not quite as intense as 2020. It didn't blast us open like that, but there's so much tension. If you have not noticed in yourself, you are wanting to make lots of changes, radical changes, big changes. But there are things in your life right now that are holding you back. And you can say, oh, it's just me. It's just my insecurities. Well, that's coming from Saturn. Saturn's going to bring a lot of bills, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of lessons and karmic debts that are going to slow these changes down. And that's a great thing because Saturn can allow the glue to dry and the cement to harden. So we may have some experiences that happen on Saturday and around Saturday that reflect this larger energy signature where you're going to continue down your path. You're going to keep making those changes, but then something's going to come in and stop you. You may feel very insecure about these things. Things may feel like it's changing too quickly. With the moon making a square to Saturn, there's a tendency to be very severe with ourselves, very hard on ourselves. Uranus is going to cause an earthquake underneath of us. The ground is shaking. It's splitting. We don't feel like we are standing tall and solid anymore. And then Uranus comes in and we feel bad about it. There's some guilt. There's some shame that can come about from that. Being very severe and tendency toward having a fear of failure. This fear of failure that may arise in you may cause you again to keep pushing your energy and to keep forcing things into action. Notice when the wave is crashing and when it's building, there are ebbs and flows in all energies. There are ebbs and flows in your energy. Notice that. Ride the wave instead of moving into the wave. You'll just be pulled under by the tide with this energy. So, just to recap, we start the week big. Lionsgate portal, new moon in Leo, Lilith conjunct Ceres. We also have this interesting conversation later when Mercury makes a square to both Ceres and Lilith. So lots of different points connecting this week. Mars is heavily active. Venus is going to oppose Neptune in Pallas and form a trine to Pluto. We're going to take things to deep places. We're going to not really know what other people's motives are. Are we being taken advantage of? What's real? What isn't? This week will be confusing. It's going to kind of be like a bunch of clouds rolling in, a bunch of thunder, starts to rain and then it doesn't. The sun comes out. We don't really quite know if we should take our umbrella or not. So, ride the waves as much as you possibly can. Of course, you can reach out to me if you have any questions about these astrological transits. And if you are wanting to know how all of this cosmic mayhem affects you personally, of course, reach out to me. That's what astrologers can do. They can take all of these cosmic energies and map it against your natal and astrological birth chart. And that shows us how all of this is specifically affecting you and how you can use these energies and not let them use you. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining me this week for the Cosmic Forecast and Energy Update for the week of August 8th through August 14th. Just as a reminder to all of you, I am the in-house intuitive astrologer for Eclipse over Roswell. I teach astrology classes. I teach Astrology Fun every Wednesday. It is kind of an introductory course. It's open to the public. It's a drop-in class every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All my classes are available on Zoom. I will also this month be teaching human design, mediumship, psychic development, alchemy of 9 dimensions, empaths anonymous. All of these classes are on a calendar and available on my website and of course on my Instagram. So go to my Instagram, check for the calendar of events and classes, and you'll see all of them that are available there, and they are all available on Zoom if you are not here in the Atlanta area. If you would like to book a reading with me, please visit www.theastromedium.com, AstroMedium.com. If you're not already following me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, you can go to @the.astromedium. I'm also on Twitter as well. And of course, if you are not already subscribed to me here on YouTube, like and subscribe below, hit the bell so you can receive notifications when I post new content. Thank you all so much again for joining me this week. I will see you all next week for another Cosmic Forecast and Energy Update. Be there or be square.